Hey everyone, Chris and Jason here with the Private Lenders Podcast. Thanks for checking us out today. As always, we are sponsored by our Mastermind group for private and hard money lenders. Go check it out. Create a free account anytime at hardmoneymastermind.com. Okay, so today we're talking about the pros and cons of remote hard money lending, of running this private lending business remotely from anywhere. And a couple things came to mind recently. A couple things kind of came in front of me that brought this topic to mind. So one of them was I saw a marketer. I got a email broadcast from a marketer who's promoting private lending, and he called it a backpack business. Take your laptop, throw it in a backpack, do it from anywhere, right? And it's partially true. We're going to talk about pros and cons. It's partially true that that can work kind of depending on the scale and what you want your business to look like. And then something else that popped in front of me recently was a friend of ours, a business friend, texted us a video to a group chat of all of us in the office about 3 or so years ago, pre-pandemic. And the whole HMB team was there. We were there doing our thing. We had a few friends in shooting marketing videos, a couple different like random business friends. And it was it was brought back some of those memories, right? It was a really productive and motivating kind of environment, and it made me miss it a bit. And so it just got me thinking about this whole thing.
Yeah, so I think it also depends on who you are, your personality type, your experience, what type of capital that you have. Can that be true? Backpack, private lending, or hard money business? Absolutely. And if you've been in the game long enough, you're using your own capital, you know the areas that you're lending in. For the most part, that is true, and you can operate that way. But at the beginning, I certainly wouldn't recommend it. I just wouldn't. Most importantly, because you got to have boots on the ground in your local market, in your local environment. You need to meet the borrowers that you're lending to. You certainly need to go to the properties that you're lending on. Those are all things. Those are all things that are important. I mean, forget the side of things related to being in an environment, a like-minded environment, that motivates you to grow. Motivate. I think that's where you're going at with that picture of all of us in the office. It made us kind of push each other to the next level, motivate each other. It was a fun environment. But forget that part for a minute. The important part is even though everyone's trying to blend real estate into an online business model, which as time goes by, it becomes more and more and more. It's still a physical asset. It's still an offline asset, and that's okay. But at the beginning, you gotta have boots on the ground and really know what you're lending against.
Yeah, for sure. At the beginning, there's no doubt about that. And then as your team evolves, like you can, evolve with it and where you're going to be and everything else. And we'll talk about pandemic stuff in a minute. But, going back to the beginning of HMB in 2007, like we never attempted to run this business without an office. Like it just wasn't something that we desired, right? Like even when we first started and we were in essence just using some extra space from a friend who owned a mortgage company at the time and working out of the back for free just because he had a bunch of extra space. Like we were always kind of office centric, right? Office focused. And then after that, we got ourselves an inexpensive office that we did pay for in the back of a title company and kind of just grew from there, right? Like we grew, our team grew. And it was always, I mean, of course we would travel, we would, vacation, we'd go to conferences and we'd function fine while we were away. But when we were in town, it was always kind of office focused until obviously pandemic time, right? So it was that way for 12 years. It was like that for about 12 years. And then obviously pandemic started, everyone had to figure out how to work remotely, and we weren't that far away from it. There weren't that many tweaks that we needed to make it happen, right? We moved a lot of our financial transactions. Instead of doing checks, we were like, 95% electronic with all that money coming in, money going out. Same stuff with like document storage. And then we just kind of went to a bare bones sort of team of one person a day, maybe two people a day going to the office just to kind of keep certain things like mail and checks and stuff like that, necessary offline stuff, keep that all moving. And we got pretty accustomed to doing it either way, right? And I think that there are definite pros and cons. For the most part, I think our team operates pretty well remotely with like a little bit of in-office time. But I still don't think it's the same kind of ease of communication, the same kind of vibe, the same like answering easy questions, seeing people, having lunch together, like I don't think it's quite there. It's like 90% instead of 100 or 85 or something like that, right?
Well, it differs based on where you are inside your business, and also how big you want to grow this business. If you want to be a one-man operator, do you want to have a big team? Like those are all things that take into consideration. And as you've been talking, I've been thinking about some of the consulting clients that we've worked with over the years, and we can kind of go through a few examples. Like, we have other hard money lenders and private lender friends of ours that have a few $1 million of their own money. They're not raising other people's capital that they're not responsible for. They're lending their own money in a geographic area that they're comfortable with, and they work out of their houses, right?
Or their beach houses.
Or their beach houses, and they work solely by themselves, and that's okay. I mean, you don't need a physical. There's two sides of it. There's the business side of it, and then there's like the personal side of it, right? They're able to operate and be responsible inside their home office, right? I will argue that they still should be going to the properties themselves, and as they grow, they still need to be meeting people. And a client might not be coming to their house or their office because they don't want somebody at their house, or they don't have an office, but they should be meeting them at a property or for lunch or coffee or things like that to grow that portfolio. I mean, you're going to limit yourself if you're not putting yourself out there, or if you're not if you're not building enough relationships. And do I think that if you have a few $1 million to deploy and you want to lend it to the same people over and over and over and over, which is very appealing to a lot of folks, can you do that? From home and just kind of take business meetings on the road? Absolutely, you can do that. But it's going to be hard to grow bigger and better on that. We also have somebody that we're friends with that has, I think, 2 employees, and then most of the capital is his own. And the way that he's set up is he has an office, number one, because it holds himself accountable. Like that's, Chris, you've used the term, work from work, home from home. And to him, he can't operate from his house or his beach house. He needs the work from his office. And as he's grown and he's gotten bigger, and he brought in, I think he has like a processor type and he has like a bookkeeper type. And with those two people, they work from the office, right? And they communicate that way. So that's what works for him. So although I think it could be done, like you said, backpack from anywhere, when you're at the beginning though, I think it's too irresponsible too, especially if you're taking on other capital investors. Like, you need to know the areas. Like, the biggest thing that prevents, at least starting out, that would prevent somebody from living in another country or far away from where you're currently lending is boots on the ground and going to properties and physically going to properties. And I know someone be like, well, why do I go to properties? I'll just hire an appraiser. Like, that's not how we run this business. We don't run this business by a third-party professional that doesn't have an economic interest in these deals telling us what they're worth. Can we use those resources as an opinion? Absolutely, by all means. But you need to make sure you're comfortable with that asset, if it's your money or someone else's money. And there's no better way to do that than going to the property, at least, for the first 100 somewhat times. So until you really, really know the areas and the properties.
Yeah, you don't have to do it forever. Like, we didn't want to drive around DC Metro, drive around the Beltway for half of the whole week, like we did when we started doing.
Yeah, but we did it for years, though. We did it for a long time until we really, really learned it, and then we were able to replicate us into somebody else.
In addition, if you're going to grow to a certain size, you can't be doing that anymore. Like, you can't spend half your week driving around. Like, you're going to need inspectors and other boots on the ground. Like, you physically can't get everywhere. Right? Like, you're just going to be burning your time on that instead of like originating new deals or keeping an eye on the portfolio or whatever it may be. But no, it's super important at the beginning for sure. But then, like, you can envision a setup where that does work, right? Like, especially the lending your own money or like, some friends and family, smaller fund kind of thing. You keep X amount outstanding on the street. You've already learned your areas. You're comfortable with your market. You know what you're doing. You have your third-party people in place doing inspections and everything else for you. And yeah, you could run it from the beach house or wherever it may be, or moving from here to there, digital real estate nomad sort of, buzzword. It could be done. It could be done.
Yeah, no, it's possible. It's possible to a degree. I think a lot of people don't take into consideration that these are assets that we're all lending on, and we're not just brokering loans to another capital investor who's responsible for it. If that's the case, if you're just looking to broker loans, by all means, it doesn't matter. but these are
Right.
physical assets that you need to know and you need to wrap your brain around. And, could you lend in a market and you live in another market? That's a common thing. It's possible, right? Like, let's say you live in Charlotte and you want to lend in Richmond. I don't know, just making that up. And I don't know how far away that is, maybe 5 hours or something. And you don't want to live there, but you want to work there because you know people there, you have a book of business there, real estate there, and that's fine. That's a good example of not being able to have an office or not being able to have an operation there, but still operating there because you know people, you know the market. Like, the first thing we talk about when you're getting started as a hard money lender with tons and tons of capital or no capital is you got to understand the area. Like, you got to dive in deep and you got to meet as many people as you can, service providers, potential borrowers, referral partners, realtors, mortgage brokers, investors, RIA groups, everything, meetup groups, everybody. Like, not only understanding the real estate and the market, but just meeting everybody there. Now, again, that's to try to get to a larger size operation. You might not want to have a larger size operation, but I personally believe that you got to have legit kind of boots on the ground into a market before you start diving in and lending there.
Yeah, and we've replicated that a couple times as we've taken on a couple more partners and expanded geographically at HMB over the years in 2 different areas of Pennsylvania and also 1 part of New Jersey, or 2 parts of New Jersey, I should say. It was the same process over and over. Like, even though that they are remote, meaning they work from home, they're not near our home office in Columbia, Maryland, they're still boots on the ground in their area, right? And they went through the same process. Like, they're basically there, like we've been saying a couple times, for 3 things, like see properties, meet borrowers, and go to the real estate groups, go to the meetups and the RIAs and stuff like that, right? And that was the, like, 1 partner came on and he worked out the system, and then the next one taught it to him, then the third one taught it to him. Is still coming along now, but it's been the same thing over and over, and it's been effective, right? It's been very effective. And then the other part of it that I started to touch on was that, okay, going back to what I said years ago, I think it was on a video, then it turned into an Instagram clip, something like that, when I said I like to work from work and home from home. Of course, like, the world kind of changed that setup for me, but I still feel that way. I've gotten kind of used to it and everything else over the past 2 years, like everyone has, but I did like that division of, like, work and home type stuff. And, when we were in the office, it was game on, right? Like, we had to get this list of stuff done. I'm going to leave some extra time for business building and other creative type of stuff. And it was like, it was on, right? It was game time in the office. And then you can go out of the office and switch off and, do what you do outside of there. And yeah, like I said, like, that kind of got turned on its head. But then as we started to come back into the office 6 months ago or something like that, more regularly, I was like, okay, I see it again, right? Like, I'm functioning well from the home office, no doubt. I can function well on the road, but being in the office with some people around, not as many as before, but with some people around, fewer distractions, right? Everyone has all the distractions you could hope for at home, right? You got a kitchen full of food, you got somebody watching TV, you got, you could work out or whatever. Like, some of those distractions go away when you're in the office and you're left with the more productive and business building things to do, right?
Yeah, and also, if you have staff and you have employees, most staff members, although they'd appreciate to be able to work at home and have flexibility, that might not be the best atmosphere for them. And or it might be. So you got to kind of determine who that person is and how they operate. And something that also kind of I relate to on this is, we get the question all the time of, why not just outsource your loan servicing? And one of the reasons we don't outsource our loan servicing is we want to have, a full, clear picture of what's going on at any given time and be involved in it, just like our business, right? And because of that, it makes sense to be able to communicate, in real time. I can walk into Terry's office, which is, right here, and say, hey, Terry, by the way, we're still looking to close this particular loan tomorrow. Can I do that on chat? Can I do that via email? Can I do that over the phone or voicemail or Zoom? Absolutely, right? You can do that. But there's more energy of like, oh yeah, we still have this issue, or we still have this. Let's do this. Hey, can you try this? Or, looking over the shoulder of one of your employees as they're, they have a question inside your loan servicing software. Like, there's tools for you to be able to do all of this stuff remotely and, pretty easily, by yourself with in-house employees with outsourced employees, or out of office employees with virtual assistants if you need to. There's ways and tools to utilize all of that. I guess in our mind, or the way that we do it, we feel like it's a little bit more productive just to have everything kind of in-house. But that's us. I'm trying to be open-minded to think other people's point of views of what they would do, right? Maybe they have a smaller portfolio and they don't want to hire an expensive controller, a bookkeeper, a processor, but they need help with it. What do you do in that situation? And, I think there's a lot of different options. I think there's
the pros and cons are pretty clear, right? Like there's a lot of stuff on both sides. So when I saw a couple of those things pop in front of me, I was like, man, yeah, we should talk about this again. I know that we talked about, maybe a year plus ago, like basic functionality, working from home, now that the pandemic started, stuff like that. But then it kind of expanded, right? And it evolved over time. And yeah, a lot of pros and cons on either side. You can make it a backpack business. You could possibly be more productive in an office. It's just kind of about you, your goals, your setup, your team, what you see your business looking like down the road, and make it into what you want,
Right.
For sure.
Yeah. No, I mean, listen, the best part about this business, besides that, you make a very good return on your money, is there's lots of options. There's no right or wrong.
Right.
You can go deploy your own money responsibly on a small scale. You can create a gigantic company if you want and have multiple offices. You figure out what works best for you, and there's no right or wrong. As long as you're responsible with your capital and other people's capital, that's the most important rule, is being responsible on that and doing good loans to good real estate investors. You'll typically have success. So whatever size you want the operation to be, however you see fit, by all means.
Yeah, for sure. And I'd really like to continue the conversation in the Mastermind. If you haven't done so already, go create a free account at hardmoneymastermind.com. Let us know what your setup's like. You like working from home with your team? Do you come and go? How does it all work? And what do you see in the future too? We'll keep that conversation going at the Hard Money Mastermind, and we will see you next time on the Private Lending